Journeys of Return and Redemption, Haggai Overview, Glory in the Ruins. Alex Rivera adjusted his headphones and looked across the studio table, tapping his pen against the open pages of the Minor Prophets. Welcome back to Journeys of Return and Redemption, Alex Rivera said, his voice instantly establishing a warm, conversational rhythm for the recording. Today we are pivoting to the prophet Haggai, stepping into a high-stakes moment in 520 BC, where the initial zeal of the return has completely stalled out under 16 years of economic exhaustion and political pushback. Sophia leaned in closer to her microphone, her face reflecting a deep empathy for the ancient families. It's a striking place to transition after our study of Ezra and Nehemiah, Alex, because you realize these people hadn't abandoned their faith entirely. They had just misplaced their priorities, Sophia noted, turning her page. They left the foundations of the temple completely bare while pouring all their money and energy into building their own beautifully paneled houses. Thomas nodded, his analytical engineer's eye tracking the diagnostic data in Chapter 1. As a builder, I can tell you that discouragement grinds a project to a halt faster than a labor shortage, Thomas said, gesturing toward the text. The people are making the practical excuse that the timing isn't right to rebuild the Lord's house, but they are completely blind to the fact that their self-reliance is what's causing their current financial ruin. Dr. Naomi adjusted her glasses and spread out her historical timelines across the desk. The economic data Haggai exposes is incredibly clinical, Dr. Naomi explained, looking over at Thomas. He tells the community to look at their yields. They are sowing much but harvesting next to nothing, eating but never feeling full, and putting their hard-earned wages into pockets that are full of dust. Rabbi Jonah smiled faintly, the weight of historical memory guiding his response. In our tradition, this is the classic anatomy of a hollow harvest, Rabbi Jonah interjected, leaning over the table. The temple wasn't just a monument, it was the localized presence of God that made corporate redemption operational, and by neglecting it, they closed the heavens over their own fields. Father Elias looked up, his voice quiet and gentle as he focused on the sudden pivot in verse 12. But the beauty of the text is how quickly the leadership responds, Father Elias said softly, his expression filled with pastoral appreciation. Zerubbabel, the governor, and Jeshua, the high priest, don't make excuses. They lead the people in a holy reverence, and God meets them instantly in their fear with that simple, massive promise, I am with you. Sophia touched the text of chapter 2, signaling the next relational hurdle the panel needed to unpack. The emotional stakes get even higher a month later when the work actually resumes, Sophia observed, her voice carrying a distinct warmth. The elderly priests look at the new foundation and begin to weep openly because, compared to the legendary splendor of Solomon's temple, this one looks like absolutely nothing in their eyes. Dr. Naomi tapped her fingers on the desk, highlighting the historical pivot. And that's exactly where Haggai delivers his most explosive defense, she remarked, her eyes bright. He tells the leadership to take courage because God is about to shake the heavens and the earth, promising that the latter glory of this house will be vastly greater than the former. Father Elias leaned back, his face alight with theological energy. That promise changes everything, he said gently, looking around the circle. Haggai is looking straight through the physical stones to the ultimate fulfillment of the new covenant, pointing to the day when Christ himself, the true temple, would walk those very courts and bring lasting peace. Rabbi Jonah raised a hand slightly, grounding the studio in the strict legal object lesson Haggai uses to close the chapter. Before they can inherit that peace, though, the prophet forces a priestly ruling on holiness, Rabbi Jonah explained, pointing directly to the verses. He asks if a holy garment can transfer its purity to a regular cloth, and they say no, but defilement transfers instantly. Haggai is reminding us that working on a sacred building project doesn't automatically make your life holy if your heart is still compromised. Thomas crossed his arms, nodding at the practical accountability of the lesson. It's a tough standard, but the story ends with an incredible token of individual grace, Thomas said, his voice steady. God singles out Zerubbabel, promising that when the kingdoms of the world are shaken, the Lord will make him like a signet ring. Alex Rivera smiled, catching the eyes of his panelists as he brought the thread together for the final wrap-up. The signet ring was the ultimate symbol of royal authority and ownership, Alex Rivera said, leaning toward his microphone to close the episode. By choosing Zerubbabel, God was declaring that the Davidic line was not lost in the ashes of the exile and that true redemption is always anchored in our willingness to put his presence first. I'm Alex Rivera, and this has been Journeys of Return and Redemption.